A little bit of history about why we're here tonight, and set kind of the framework of the discussion. I'm going to read it because it's so well written by Anna that I can't really think that I would do any better, and I would just fumble and bumble my way along. So it's only a page, but it will give you a real concise starting point. The necessity for this discussion has been obvious for some time. As far back as 2008, even before the passage of Proposition 8 in California, which amended the California state constitution to prevent the recognition of same-sex marriage. At that time, and in subsequent months, many advocacy organizations and religious institutions asserted that legal recognition of the rights and relationships of LGBT people are a threat to the religious liberty of other Americans. Church versus gay became the dominant narrative in media coverage of and discussion about Proposition 8. This narrative also pervaded discussions of same-sex marriage in general, and even of equal protection for LGBT people in the workplace and in public accommodations. This false dichotomy is very troubling to the ACLU. As a defender of both religious liberty and equality for all people, regardless of sexual orientation and gender identity, the ACLU has a vested interest in exploring the truth and the misperceptions behind this assumed class of liberties. By preventing certain acts of discrimination against a particular group of people in the public arena, is the government really infringing on the rights of others to live their lives according to their conscience or their religion? This is the fourth Beyond the Division discussion the ACLU Utah has coordinated in order to grapple with that question, the fourth in the state and across the Wasatch Front. And we anticipate that many more conversations will need to take place in our communities, our families, and in our neighborhoods. The ACLU does not believe that the freedom to practice according to one's personal religious beliefs is precisely at odds with the freedom of others to live free from discrimination. We know that it can certainly feel that way at times, but it is much too simplistic to paint this complex balancing of rights as a two-sided argument between religious people on one side, gay and transgender people on the other. There are many factors to consider and many gray areas. The law can guide us through some of these questions. The Constitution is a very good roadmap for a pluralistic nation where both individual liberty and social responsibility are prized. But to get through many of these gray areas, the law is too blunt an instrument at times, and we must rely on our shared humanity, our commitment to one another. That's really important as I think of my LDS family and me. Our commitment to each other, which is what holds us together in spite of this difference. And our desire to live peaceably in the communities and families we care about. Our goal today is a respectful, open-ended discussion of the various rights and interests at play in the movement for equality of gay and transgender people in the United States and in Utah. This is not a debate about whether same-sex relationships are right or wrong. Rather, we will be discussing how this movement for equality does and does not impact the rights of religious people to practice their religious traditions. We will talk about the difficulties in drawing a clear line between church and state, the difficulties of doing that, particularly in our efforts to ensure the protection of the rights of all people who live together in our pluralistic democratic society. The point of this discussion is not to win, but to learn. And our panelists are not here to fight amongst themselves or with anyone in the audience. They are here to discuss realistic ways, legally, legislatively, and interpersonally, that we can live together, though we may have a different faith, tradition, different political beliefs, personal values, and ways of living. To keep the peace and the conversation moving, we are pleased to have Barry Gomberg as our moderator. I'm going to read just a paragraph about him and turn it over to him. Barry has been a faculty member at Weber State since 1988, when he became Director of Affirmative Action and Equal Opportunity for the university. Mr. Gomberg has taught as an adjunct professor both at Indiana University Law School and Weber State. He has also taught at Ogden High School. Prior to joining Weber State, Mr. Gomberg actively practiced law, focusing on civil rights, employment, and education. In his current position, he provides civil rights training and advises the university on promoting diversity and inclusivity, avoiding discrimination based on disabilities, ethnicity, age, religion, and other protected classifications, and preventing sexual harassment. Mr. Gomberg received his undergraduate degree from Indiana University, where he also earned his law degree and a secondary teaching certification. And so I turn the time over now to Mr. Gomberg.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
I'm going to feel much better about this if this stays kind of casual and as interactive as possible. So, by way of format, after I introduce the honored panelists, I'm going to throw out a hypothetical and then move down to the audience and encourage you all to participate, get my attention one way or another. And we will be distributing cards. For those of you who may not be comfortable speaking up, although I suspect you'll all feel fine doing it, hopefully this will give you the opportunity to submit questions that we can pose to the panelists in the event that you've got a question that you don't care to ask directly. I'm very much looking forward to, by the way, my association with Weber State goes back pretty far too. When I first moved to Ogden, I believe this institution had just changed its name from the Weber Steak Academy.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Maybe it was a little bit after that. that notion of church and state has an interesting history at this institution.
Yes,
actually, as it began as a parochial school. The goal that we're going to be pursuing tonight is to explore how sincerely held religious beliefs can be protected while preventing those beliefs from unnecessarily limiting the rights of others. And that's sort of my reframing of the issue. We're going to do this hopefully by giving all members of the panel and the audience the benefit of the doubt, and assuming that as individuals express opinions that they believe in and support, that we will presume that they are acting out of sincerely held beliefs and give them credit for that, even as we may take issue, and hopefully will take issue, with those opinions with which we disagree. What's really exciting about this discussion is the fact that, unlike Hollywood, where right is always pitted against wrong, the most interesting issues that we face, I think, as individuals and collectively as a people, are issues where right conflicts with right. And so we have two deeply held rights at issue today that we're going to be discussing. The long cherished right of freedom of religion, free exercise, as well as the freedom to practice one's religion free from interference from the state by means of a state-established religion, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the demand for justice, the demand for equality that sexual minorities are continuing to fight for today. And so neither of these rights is by any means unimportant or I would suggest subordinate to the other. They both come to this discussion as deeply cherished beliefs, and that's why as these two appear to be in conflict in some instances, it's crucial that we learn how to do our very best to make peace between them and to try to give as wide a berth to both as possible. And I'm reminded, just by way of a quick analogy, we're honored to have Janet Shipton in the audience tonight here from England. And Janet, I mentioned because she was active in the movement to try to achieve adoption of an equal rights amendment in the 1970s. Utah played an interesting role in that struggle